Hello, my name is Samantha Santos, and I chose to research the coffee industry of Ecuador. I chose Ecuador because it is a pretty small country, geographically speaking, and my thought process was that if I chose a country that had less space to produce coffee, then that would allow me to really research it in depth and get to know it really well, rather than choosing one of the bigger countries where it can kind of be overwhelming and daunting to kind of get to that level of understanding in it. Um, so I wanted to start this with a map of the coffee regions in Ecuador. This map does not include the Galapagos Islands that are off the west coast of Ecuador. However, given the fact that most coffee production in Ecuador happens on the mainland, this map is a very good representation of the different coffee regions that are present in Ecuador. So as you can see, most of the coffee that is produced in Ecuador is grown in the middle of the country. However, you also have different types of coffee that occur off to the sides and that also grow down to the south, as you can see with the blue and yellow circles that indicate the specialty and lower elevation coffee. It's also important to note that the main coffee region in the center in tan does continue on north and south into parts of Colombia and Peru. It's important to just kind of realize and remember that just because different coffee producing countries have just kind of distinct characteristics doesn't mean that there are not a lot of geographical requirements that all of these countries have to share in order to have a climate that is conducive to growing coffee. The biggest part of Ecuador's coffee industry is insoluble coffee. Also known as instant coffee, soluble coffee is one of the most popular ways that millions around the world get and drink their caffeine. Some of the most popular brands around the world of instant coffee include Folgers and Maxwell House Coffee. However, Ecuador's large and successful coffee industry is based on importing coffee beans from other countries, where it is then manufactured in Ecuador into soluble coffee and then exported out around the world. With that being said, Ecuador does not grow and directly produce the vast majority of the coffee it exports, but they are trying to change that. Although most of us associate and think of Charles Darwin when we hear about the Galapagos, the islands have a lot more to offer than just really cool tortoises. The Galapagos Islands are one of the very few places in Ecuador that are able to sustain the growth of organic coffee beans, which are grown without the help of any chemical fertilizers or pesticides. This type of coffee is actually the only product that is exported from the Galapagos Islands, and its production goes back for more than a century. Interestingly enough, only 3% of the land on the Galapagos Islands are suitable for growing organic coffee beans. As I briefly alluded to, Ecuador is trying to grow its coffee industry and rely more on homegrown coffee beans rather than the importation of coffee beans from other countries. This goal of increasing homegrown coffee can be tied to goal number 8 of the United Nations Global Goals. This goal is centered on decent work and economic growth. In the 1990s, Ecuador endured a very serious economic crisis that had immense implications on the whole country, including its coffee industry. The country has since been making strides to grow its economy and recover, with Ecuador trying to get its foot in the door with new markets of coffee production. Ecuadorians are working very hard to create and sustain economic growth in the future.